Where? Okay. Okay, we'll start tonight's Olivet's Planning and Community Design Commission in order, September 21st, 2023. Madam Vice Chair, would you please call the roll? Certainly. Should have asked you before.
Okay. Chairman Robert Turgio,
Present.
Vice Chairman Carol Wagoner, I'm present. Acting Secretary Brian Lewis,
Absent.
Member Laura Ragsdale,
Present.
Member Tim Spiegelglass,
Absent.
Member Daniel Rosenberg,
Present.
and Member Sam Wallen.
Present.
All right. Let it also be known that our City Council liaison, Councilmember Missy Waldman, is in attendance, as well as our staff liaison, Carlos Trejo, the Director of Olivet's Planning and Community Development Department. Dawn Doty, Senior Planner, I know she's here. She must have just stepped out. Okay. And Jack Carswell, Planning and Zoning Administrator. All right. Carlos, am I missing anybody who might be on Zoom or anything?
No, Chairman, that's all of us.
Okay, good. I'd like to just start off this meeting right now just to welcome our newest member, Laura Ragsdale. So thank you for being, for volunteering or being pressured, not sure exactly. But we appreciate that you're on this council or on this commission, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. For anybody who hasn't been in attendance before, just to kind of let you understand kind of how this meeting, goes about. We follow the agenda item. There'll be items on the agenda, and then typically there's a staff report. Staff will go through that report. There'll be some questions and answers back and forth between commission members and staff. Then we typically bring on the petitioner to help explain the project a little bit more in detail or go over any points that have been brought up. And then at that point in time, we have public comments, and those are for items, for that particular agenda item. We do have a time for public comments that are related to items that are not on the agenda, and that will be kind of in the beginning of the meeting. But we ask you that if you have a comment that's related to the agenda item, that you wait until that agenda item and when we ask for public comments, for that at that time. We do ask everybody, for public comments to state your name and address in front of the podium, as well as petitioners that come up. And we do, for the public comments, we do limit those to no more than 3 minutes, just to be respectful of everybody's time, as well as to make sure everybody's opinion gets heard. So, all right, that being said, for those on Zoom that are attending, if you do have a public comment, there's a little a button or, icon at the bottom to raise your hand. And please raise your hand by pushing that button. And then when you get called up to, be brought up onto the meeting, we do ask you that you turn on your camera as well as your mic. Those are default settings that are set for default to be muted with the camera off, but we need those on. And so to speed things up, make sure you look out for those. So I know I'm talking to everybody in the audience, but it's for all the Zoom callers that might be online. So Carlos, am I missing anything?
No, Chairman, that covers it all.
All right, good. So we will then move on to item 3, comprehensive plan update.
Chairman, just want to update the commission on the progress of the comprehensive plan update. As you are aware, the city's Planning and Community Design Commission are the stewards of the city's comprehensive plan. Our last full comprehensive plan was conducted in 2006, and then we've had supplement updates in 2012, 2016, 2018, and 2019 to that plan. We are in the process of redoing the comprehensive plan fully to incorporate all these updates and also engage the community for their input in the vision for the future of the community. Comprehensive plan usually lasts about 20 years. And of course, our current one was initially adopted in 2006. Right now, I do want to urge everybody that's in attendance to take the strategy survey that's available at the comprehensive plan website. You can see the link up there and you can access that either through the city's website, and we have various QR codes that are available for view. That survey is available until October 6th. We've extended the survey date an extra week. We did that purposely because the city has several of our community parks having openings, and we intend to use that opportunity to again engage the public to participate both on the website and on the survey. So far to date, we've had over 9,000 visitors to the website. Of those 9,900 have contributed to the website in terms of various tasks and surveys. We've had interactive activities on that website. So those numbers are really great. We had 351 survey participants to the original survey. We had a community workshop back in May, in which we had over 125 residents attend here at the community center. And we've had over 12 hours of stakeholder interviews, specifically identifying groups that just hadn't aggressively taken the survey or participated in the process. That includes renters, Asian Americans, Blacks, African Americans, and business owners throughout the community. And we do have several upcoming events we want to make sure everybody is active and engaged in. Again, that survey, you have that opportunity till October 6th to participate. We have an advisory committee meeting October 12th. We have a couple of members here and also in the audience. Just a reminder, next Thursday, 2 Thursdays from now, October 12th is our advisory committee meeting. We have a staff workshop on October 26th. A draft plan open house anticipated on November 30th. And we hope to have a hearing and a completed plan before this body, the commission, on our meeting at December 21st. And that's, of course, counting on an aggressive schedule.
Yeah,
Yes.
Can we talk about the December deadline for a second? I think that's really aggressive. And it doesn't give the advisory committee or the planning commission much time to actually review and cogitate on the draft.
Mhm.
And I know it's important. I think it's important for us to be able to do that.
And that's something
The
that
other is that it is a time when lots of people are otherwise occupied and out of town, etc. So for us to hold a hearing on that date, well, it'd be lovely to get it done before the first of the year. I just find it a little bit, shall we say,
and
disingenuous.
it's something we can talk about at the next advisory committee meeting.
Okay.
And your comments are welcome. This date hasn't changed. I'll note on that. We've talked about this.
I know.
and for it to be
I was
coming up
just
now,
Think about it.
Yes, but let's talk about it and then I'll let the consultants explain what the intent of the open house is. At that point, the draft will be prepared and presented to the public.
Okay.
So that is November 30th in there. The commission is required,
A
pardon?
lot of it's going to depend on just how well the draft is done
Correct. Mhm.
and, you know, how, if
Mhm.
there's any significant comments, you know, that come out.
Correct. So, and the public hearing, again, that's before the commission, before taking action, and there is nothing that's required in where the commission has to take action that night either. So, but we'll make sure that I'll inform the consultants and that they have that for discussion at the meeting on the 12th. I think
Thank
they're
you.
good comments. I appreciate it. Other recent engagements that we've had have been the council and this commission's joint workshop a couple of weeks ago. And then the consultants were at the coffee with the mayor last week in there. So again, we've been trying to get the word out in there. And again, using this opportunity with a number of items we have in there. This is our process diagram for the comprehensive plan. We are in the October, September, down towards the last 4 months with the tentative schedule, of course, of trying to complete by the end of this year and get this to the council in early January. There are a couple of major meetings that are still coming into process. One is the advisory committee in October, and then of course the public open house again, November 30th. So this is pretty exciting because we're well over 3/4 of the way in that process, and we should be getting the draft information. We're going to go over that in just a second too from the consultants. So The process has gone smoothly. A draft vision has been prepared by the consultants. The vision emphasizes that what we've heard from our community is that the community matters, diversity is valued, concerns about the cost of living and affordability of Olivet. For us to act sustainably and take a long-term approach, to have a thriving business sector that's responsive to the needs of the Olivet residents, and ensure that our built environment connects us and reinforces our sense of place. And they kind of curtail that furthering from our current vision, from the dynamic sense of place plan from 2006. The comprehensive plan has been drafted in chapters. This is consistent with the American Planning Association's recommendations for sustainable comprehensive plans, in which we discuss the livable and built environment, resilient and equitable economy, healthy community, harmony with nature, and future land uses and community design. That is the bone structure of our plan. And within each of these chapters, through the public input, the consultant said has identified different goals, within each goal, different strategies to accomplish those goals. I'm going to go quickly over at least some of these. As regards to the built environment, is to encourage high quality housing that is diverse in terms of type and price, to provide a connected, safe, and equitable transportation network, ensure reliable, efficient, and sustainable infrastructure, and ensure high quality city services and facilities for all residents and businesses. Within each of these chapters that we went over here, you would have specific goals that have been identified based on the community input. And then within each of these goals, you'll have specific strategies in terms of what the city can do in the next 20 years to try to accomplish those. And Chairman, that kind of wraps up where we are on the update on the comprehensive plan. Be glad to answer any specific questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Carlos? No, Carlos, it's great. It's moving along and it's really coming together. So if anybody in attendance hasn't been to the website or hasn't been involved, highly encourage you to do it. We're kind of in the last quarter, okay? And we really need to get as many people involved as possible. So if you haven't, please do, and encourage other neighbors, friends, or other business owners to get involved, because the whole idea is to make sure we get representative voices from the community, so we can kind of make sure we have a good, solid plan to work from. All right. That being said, let's move on to item 4, public comments. These are for items that are not on the agenda item. Stephanie?
There. Hi, Stephanie Todd, 7 Heather Hill Lane. So I was here 3 months ago and I proposed looking into an ordinance to preserve trees. So I talked to the city council. I think they're going to have a working session on that. And I think they're going to invite Carlos. But in the meantime, I would just ask that you do what you can to preserve trees, because there are design or development guidelines. I know they're not an ordinance, but they're guidelines, and I don't know, maybe Carlos knows if there's other things. So I'm just asking that you preserve trees, because trees are a reflection of the city and they actually do increase property value. And I got with a couple, at least one builder said, yeah, they could support it, because they said all the other cities around here have ordinances. So it's like, we're doing this already, and in U City and Clayton and Kirkwood and Creve Coeur. So they're like, yeah, we, that's what we're doing now. And like Clayton's tree preservation ordinance starts out: the shady canopy provided by mature trees is an important character defining feature in many of Clayton's older residential neighborhoods. And I live on Heather Hill Lane, and I was one of the first, I bought a house that was like the first after the first tear down. And at the time, Heather, and this was, 30 years ago or whatever, at the time, Heather Hill Lane was really wanted because it was lined with all these pin oaks, and everybody really liked, the tree lined street. So you know, instead of, and I just noticed, you know, so I can't come here every day, you know, I don't want to come here every time you have a house to review and say, please don't cut down the trees, please, you know, or, you know, and I'm realistic. I know that a lot of them, but like, I just noticed that number 3, Stacy Lane is been torn down and has a sign up in front, and there's a couple nice trees out in front, 2 pine trees. And then it looks like it looks like they've already cleared all the back. So it's like, so I don't know if it's too late or not.
Well, I know in the back, they didn't really have many trees back there. I'm
Okay.
familiar with that.
Yeah, because
that
it's
house.
over
Right.
near where you live, and it's right around
Yeah, it
the
was
corner from
kind
me.
of a wide open field.
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
it.
and one other comment. So the house that's right across from the house you're going to talk about tonight, the 9733. So that house has a huge tree in front that's not cut down, but they've piled up dirt around the trunk, and you can see that they're driving all really close next to it. So it's also important that when you tell a developer, you know, please keep these trees, they need to put a tree protection zone around it. Otherwise, they're just going to kill it.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened on our lot. You know, when we moved in, and then, you know, months later, we have to cut it down. So keep trees.
Good. Thanks for the comments. Appreciate it. Anybody else in attendance? Go ahead.
Just gonna tag on to Stephanie. I'm
Please.
Susie, or officially Susan Colhagen at 27 Forsythia, Carol's neighbor. And we've had lots of tear downs in our area, and a lot of people took down a lot of trees, and we've been here 24 years and planted, we've lost a few, but we planted like 30 trees in our yard. And so I'm all about it. And of course, the canopy, the great thing is it provides shade, which is better for everybody's energy bills and makes it much more walkable and more comfortable, because I could walk every day and I'm always following the trees to get in the shade. And then it also removes a lot of carbon and other pollutants from the air. So that's going to be good health wise. They've been showing that decrease in asthma and heart disease when you have more trees in your area, especially in urban areas. Mental health benefits of trees, of course, it's home to birds, other wildlife. The leaves drop, and that's good for the soil, and it filters water. And then, of course, we've been worried about storm runoff, the water runoff, and the trees help mitigate that and protect us from flooding and the runoff. And then increase property values, which you already said. And then, of course, attractiveness. So anyway, we're all about preserving trees. So I'm just tagging on to Stephanie's information.
Great.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Seeing no hands up, Carlos, will you please check the online?
If anybody online wants to speak before the commission regarding a general item not on the agenda, if you can show your hand. Chairman, I see none.
Okay, good. All right, we'll move on to old business, number 5, and it's 5A 9680 Olive Boulevard. Good Faith BP Amico. Carlos?
Okay, Chairman, before getting into the review of the BP Amical, if I can go over this real quickly with the type of commission reviews, because there's going to be applicable through the agenda.
great.
And since we have a new member and some newer members in attendance here, just the commission primarily conducts 3 types of reviews, what we call community design, site plan, and special permits. There's also a concept stormwater management plan review that's supplemental to many of these, but these are the 3 primary reviews that we do: community design, site plan, and special permit. The differentiation between these 3 reviews is when we apply community design, you're applying aesthetic standards, and they're not necessarily goals or regulations or ordinances, They're usually defined through guidelines, and you serve as an an aesthetic review board or architectural review board, and you provide your opinion, and the consensus opinion of the commission members is essentially what results in terms of some sort of action to help us facilitate in these types of meetings, so we know what we're all talking about. We've drafted the Olivet Residential Redevelopment and Design Guidelines in there, and in that they have 5 architectural elements and 3 site improvement type of elements that we have some guidance of what we're looking for as a commission as a whole, and then staff reviews those on behalf of the commission and then forwards you a recommendation. You may not always agree with staff, and that is okay, and that's where we have our discussions, and then the commission as a whole makes a determination of whether changes should be made in there. When those things occur, you give us guidance on how to review the next project. If there was a concern about a specific issue or item, we know the next time around that we're going to, inform the petitioner that this might be discussed. What this type of design does not do is allow or encourage any changes to that. When we apply community design, it means that the lot is fully compliant with the zoning district, provides ample setbacks, both front, side, and rear, as determined by the city council, and has been authorized or permitted to have something in there, whether it's a house, a pool, a shed, a fence in there. It's not about whether you can or can't have, let's say, a fence. It's about whether you can have the fence you'd like to put up. And that's important because in this case, again, neighboring property owners can't dictate, some of the design unless they can tie it to some of the standards in the evaluation. But when it's concerns about the setback, location, placement, those aren't really up for discussion when you do a community design. The second type of review is a site plan review, and that's applied to all commercial properties, but more specifically, it's applied to residential properties when the lot is what we consider legal non-conforming, meaning it's substandard either in area, width, length, or so. And in that case, the lot is provided some discounts on setbacks, placement, areas, and things of that nature. And therefore, the commission has the authority to consider the impact of what's being proposed to the surrounding environment, meaning that, let's say, a house may be permitted to have a 6-foot setback, where traditionally in an ideal lot you have a 12-foot setback. But given that it's permitted to have a 6-foot setback, the commission may be concerned about the placement of a window because of a neighbor in there, where in a 12-foot setback that is a harder standard to try to apply between the two in there. But that means when you do a site plan review, not only are you considering what's going on inside the lot, but you're being cognizant of what impacts it has outside of the lot or outside of the lot boundaries in there. And that's permitted or authorized by code. So the commission can require buffering. It could be, get into details regarding lighting, parking, and other things of that nature. Whereas in a community design, again, you're looking at the aesthetic. And then finally, there's what we call special permit reviews. Special permit reviews will generally have a community design and site plan component. And in this case, the commission is a recommending body to the city council, meaning the council will forward a recommendation to the city council, who will have final say of what is and isn't approved or authorized in there. There are specific conditions that the commission is to look into when considering a special permit, whether it furthers the comprehensive plan. Is it sustainable? Does it alter the surrounding areas? Does it mitigate spillover effects? Is it applicable to have additional conditions? Or should there be any site or use specific conditions like placement of restriction on hours or requiring a professionally designed lighting plan because of the activity that takes place, or noise recognition. So those are the 3 distinct differences between what we do here at the commission. Community design, where you act as an aesthetic review board; site plan, where you consider the impacts of the surrounding properties; and then special permits, where you're working on behalf of the council to determine the suitability of a specific use and whether it furthers the city's plans, comprehensive plan. So just wanted to kind of lay that out. We're going to have our next meeting in October. I think it is scheduled on the 5th. And at that meeting, we'll go, we'll have it in a work session format. We'll have the city attorney here. And we'll talk about these three type of design review types and then any other questions that the commission may have.
That's good.
Okay.
That's great.
All right, Chairman, and if you're okay, I'll be ready for
Yeah, yeah.
9680.
That'd be great.
Chairman, this item was in our application in our agenda in August. The petitioners or owners of the property at 9680, which is a gas station there at the southeast corner of Old Bottom Road and Olive Boulevard, want to place a canopy cover over the fuel pumps along Olive Boulevard. We looked at this, kind of discussed it at the August meeting. There was several concerns and comments regarding some of the aesthetics and coloring of the site, and also that the petitioner be present to have discussion. In our initial review, we noted the conditions of the site. Gasoline station and service convenience store operates through the process of a special permit, meaning the council's authorized this property to have a service station and a convenience store in there. That was authorized roughly almost a year ago under ordinance 2755. The petitioner now wants to add a canopy that's roughly about 840 square feet along the first fuel pump islands. There'll be no increase in the general floor area of the building. There'll be no additional parking required for the canopy, and we don't believe there'll be any adverse environmental impacts on the site. We're asking the commission to determine whether this should be considered through an amendment, which means that the commission will have sole action on the process, or whether it should be considered as a new special permit request in there. From a staff perspective, the use within itself is not changing, and therefore we ask the commission to consider it as an amendment. Now, the petitioner, we did have a discussion regarding the coloring and trying to get information to show three-dimensionally of what was being proposed within the canopy in there. We met with the property owner, and we helped put together some designs and colors and talked about, we watched the clip from the previous meeting, and then we went over all the questions that were proposed by the commission. End of the day, this is the canopy that is being proposed in here. We tried to get a system to put it in some type of rendering. There would be two posts holding up the canopy. Those posts will be brick enclosed, similar to what we have at the mobile station. And then you'll have the traditional Amico white canopy with the green line that runs across in there. There'll be no additional signage that's being proposed on the canopy itself. On the building would be repainted to reflect the white and green traditionally of the Amico, along with the signage in there. We talked about, about the process of the coloring. And again, you start getting into a subject thought, but they were willing to revert back to the white and green aspects of that. I don't have anything in addition in there. The petitioners are here to answer any additional commission questions. They are on schedule, and you have copies of the approving ordinance about the completion of all the other items, including the corner monument sign and public area. They're going to explain what they're trying to do and how they're getting to that timeline, because it is kind of tied to the canopy. And I'll let the petitioners talk about that aspect. Be glad to answer any specific questions regarding the process in there, and if not, if the commission is ready for the petition.
I don't have any specific questions. Does anybody else? Carol?
Yes, Carlos, how high are we looking at for the canopy?
It's about roughly about 18 feet
And will it be lit?
underneath. Yes. Mhm. The main issue, and we met with the fire marshal, was to ensure how they were going to address their vehicles through the process or in the intent of the emergency. They were fine with the overall height in there. They may put the ambulance nearby, but he indicated that they probably would never have the pumper truck on the site grounds, given the site, the size of the site, and that access would probably be easier and more quicker off of the streets.
Any other questions or comments? That being said, I think we should hear from the petitioner.
Hello, everyone. It's Nazia. Address is 9233 Lutzinger Road, 63144. So I'm here. He explained everything. I'm here just to tell that we are working on everything, all the renovation projects that we agreed upon. And first we will get the BP sign, exactly like the mobile. And then the second we will do landscaping, and the third will be the canopy. So we are working on it, and we are still in the timeline. And I am here just to tell that we will work all the renovation products that we agreed upon last year.
What else is remaining to be done on, of what was previously agreed to?
Primarily the completion of the corner node, which included both the new signage, getting rid of the pole sign, going to a monument style signage, and then some landscaping.
Mhm.
And that's, part of that's gonna be done.
Mhm.
Yes, they have up
Yeah,
till.
we will do that part first.
They have up till, I think, April next year.
Yes, yes. 18 months. Yep.
Okay. Go ahead, Carol.
So how is the canopy tied into what was previously approved?
Um,
I'm just trying to get a handle on this timeframe.
so how the canopy means, like, sorry, I didn't get that. I mean, how the,
So I was trying to, Carlos said these were all the improvements were tied together. And I'm trying to figure out exactly.
you are absolutely right. Last time when it came,
Uh-huh.
that's my mistake too. We didn't ask canopy at that time, because actually I was in a confusion, because it was in the city ordinance that a site can have canopy on the front to dispensers that are exactly in front of the building. So that's why the last year I didn't ask for that. I thought that it's already in the ordinance, so maybe I don't need to ask it. So, but when it came to Carlos to ask about that, he said that, no, we have to go again and we have to ask them for the
okay.
canopy. Yeah.
Okay, now I understand.
Thank you so much.
And the intent of the canopy to do it now, is there a requirement, or what's the?
Actually, we are working with the gas company, gas supplier, and we asked them the loan. And the gas company requires, they said, okay, we can give you like 95,000 or whatever money you need. That money we are gonna use for the renovation projects too. So they said, okay, you should have a canopy, and then you can get the money, and then you can use the same money with your other renovation projects.
And it provides safety, right?
Yeah, and exactly for the customer, when it rains, when it snows, they don't feel comfortable to stop there, for the gas.
Is there also like fire retardant, or extinguishers or things like that in the canopy?
No, it's not like that, but
Okay.
it's just for the safety,
Yeah,
for the safety of the customer, because they don't stop when it's so sunny, when it rains, when it snows,
yeah.
because they don't feel safe to stop there. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? You guys also sell food, so are you gonna put anything on the signage about?
No,
No?
no, it's actually the gas company or the brand. It will not allow us to put anything on the canopy.
No, on the building.
No, we will not. We will just keep the name Oliver Station,
Okay,
and we will not put anything. It will be like just the general convenience store. We are not putting
Okay.
anything. No.
okay, because food's really good.
Thank you so much.
So,
Thank you
I
so
think
much.
it's a good idea, but.
Thank
All
you
right, any other questions or comments? If not, then we'll take some public comments on this too.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anybody in the audience have any comments related to this agenda item? Seeing none, Carlos, will you please check online?
All right, I don't see any hands up. If anybody would like to speak in regards to this agenda item, if you can show your placement of hand. Right, Chairman, I see none.
Okay, any other further discussion?
Chairman, I am gonna
Yeah,
bring in
please.
just one point, because the question was asked regarding the convenience store and what is permitted. In there, we will traditionally allow a convenience store to have prepackaged food or food that's been made and brought to the site, but not food at the site. So the one thing I would stress is And the best of my knowledge, this doesn't operate as a restaurant. They do
Right.
have packaged food available to residents. Once it becomes made on site, then it crosses the line. And that's a different special permit, different special conditions, and all that. And we've had the discussion with the petitioner.
Good.
I just want to make sure anybody online understood the differences of it.
Makes sense. Appreciate the clarification. That being said, do I hear any motions?
The last thing I'll note, I apologize again for interrupting, but in this case, I'm asking the commission under its first motion to consider whether they would take this as an amendment to the existing ordinance. Therefore, the commission will have the final action, or if they consider this a major change to the ordinance that they want a new ordinance drafted back to the council.
How's everyone feel about that
I think it's a change to the existing.
amendment? Yeah, I concur with that. So, any disagreement? No. Okay, so if we're doing as an amendment, then we would just go with motion number one. Is that right, Carlos?
Yes.
Good, good. All right. Anybody like, go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to motion to consider the petition for an 840 square foot canopy cover over at 9680 Olive Boulevard as an amendment to as authorized under section 400.1220 of the city zoning regulations.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Sam Wallach. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Wallach,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approve.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
and Chairman Drago.
Approved.
The motion to permit this as an amendment passes unanimously at 5-0.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number, or actually, we'll move on to new business.
Actually, I need the second motion now. This is
Oh, you do.
recognizing that we're going to do this as an amendment. So now somebody would take, consider motion two.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I misunderstood.
Understand?
Okay. Carol, would you like to make a second motion?
I'll make second motion. A motion to approve a petition for site plan review to permit the construction of an 840 square foot canopy cover at the property address as 9680 Olive Boulevard as illustrated in the permit plans presented on September 20, 2023 before the commission and noted in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated September 21, 2023, subject to staff conditions there.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Sam Wallach. All right. All right, Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Wallach,
Point of clarification here for me. If we approve the first one, are we supposed to reject the second one, or they
if
work together?
if the first one wasn't approved, then then we'd be looking at a wholly different motion
Okay,
that would be recommending to the city council.
okay,
So in this case, the staff recommendation, we see this as an amendment, that there isn't a significant change of the actual use. Therefore, that's why we asked the commission to consider that. Kind of covers or confirms that.
okay.
So the first
Appreciate it.
one was to make it an amendment. And the second
Which
one
we've
was
already
to
approved.
approve the amendment to the before, then we get to approve it.
Sorry. So am I approving the,
Now the canopy.
oh, I see. Okay, approved.
Good clarification.
So just
Yes.
wanted to
Commissioner
say-
Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
and Commissioner Drago.
Approved.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, good, good, good. All right, we'll move on to new business. Item A is 9664 Olive Road, Olivet Center, proposed St. Louis Dance Academy. Carlos?
Chairman, the St. Louis Dance Academy, which is located here in Olivet at 9310 Olive Boulevard. They've been there at least well over 14 years at that site, is looking to relocate from their present location and move westward to the Olivet Center, which the parcel address, we look at it as 9606 Olive Boulevard. But that parcel is a nearly 5-acre parcel with an 80,000 square foot multi-tenant retail building. It's zone COR, which is our commercial office retail district. And they're looking at occupying the space, the tenant space address is 9656 Olive Boulevard, which was the tenant space that was formerly occupied by Tuesday Morning and has now been vacated in there. Their petition is to relocate their dance studio to the old Tuesday morning site, which is roughly 12,125 square feet. The key thing here is that the way we have our COR district and the amendments we did back in 2014, we identified dance studios as a specific codification that's used by the Census Bureau. And there, in this case, it is NAICS 6116, which includes dance studios. And any dance studio in excess of 5,000 square feet, meaning that they're permitted by right on the property grounds. But if they exceed 5,000 square feet, they require a special permit, meaning now that the commission is providing a recommendation to the council, and the council will have the final authority for approval. The key question is, well, why did we do that? Well, we once had an issue that somebody was looking to occupy this space, and there's still some people in the audience that were there, that we didn't have this in place. And given the size of the retailer that was going in and what they were doing, we had a lot of public pushback, and ultimately we made a change in the code. And if you don't recall, you were there, it was a former Goodwill store.
Oh.
So we made changes to restrict sizes of the properties, not to say that we would not welcome that type of use or use retailer in the space, but we wanted to make sure that they were appropriate in terms of their size and contribution to the character of all of that. In this case, again, if this site was 5,000 square feet or less, this wouldn't be coming to the commission because it does exceed that 5,000 square feet. It is part of the process of a special permit. It goes before this commission, which this commission too has rights to approve things up to a certain sizes. But when we had acknowledged the 2016 catalyst strategy, we made emphasis that this was one means or method of how we were going to curate the tenant mix. And that's the wording that's used in the process. So we can make sure that when we get requests, we can look at how does this balance with either the site within itself or the corridor as a whole. And this has been a pretty good opportunity for us because the Olivet Center has really changed, has seen a change, and we're seeing it become a more of a community spot with a number of restaurants that are now located on there, the different amenities, and then we think this will add to that. And also their operating hours are complementary to a lot of the neighboring tenants who operate mostly in the morning. And so we're excited about this use. We do know it does have to go through hoops because of the site plan review process, but I think that's why we have this in place to make sure it works. And there we've been doing what we can on our end to try to help facilitate the process for them. You have within your packet different renderings of how they were going to improve the tenant space. And it's really exciting, the amount of effort and the design that has gone into this. And it's really going to be a top-notch type of facility in there. At that point, you have the information in your packets, the staff report. I'd be glad to answer any specific questions from the commission. Also, I attached to you over 12 letters, emails that I received as of today, expressing support. And then that's all I have, Chairman. We do have a representative with Bianco Properties here and also with the Dance Academy.
Carlos, is any discussion on the signage that's going to be on the building?
No, we have not gotten to that point yet.
Okay, just curious.
And
Okay.
one of the things is that the shopping center itself has a review process for their signage. They had tried to maintain channel letters, and then that the prime anchors, which this would be one of the anchoring, is allowed a little bit more flexibility in color, but the inline tenants usually have to be predominantly white channel letters. And we work closely with Bianco in pursuing that.
Good. Any questions or comments for Carlos? Carol?
Yeah, Carlos, I see this as an asset for the center. It's gonna bring a lot of people in. Parking should not be a problem.
No.
And it should help support the small shops that are already
Absolutely.
there, including the restaurants. So I see that as being a real plus.
Yeah, I agree. Any other questions, or comments? Do we need, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask one.
Yeah, please. do.
I just want to know the egress in and out of this particular location. Is there only one way in and one way out?
No,
I'm not
there are
clear.
multiple exits and entries. Now, the primary public entry is through the traditional corner that Tuesday morning has. But if you're talking about other egress for emergency purposes, in total, there are 3.
Okay, thank you. Carlos, I guess if there's no other questions or comments, we could hear from the petitioner. We'd love to hear,
Yes.
Hi, I'm Diana Barnett, property manager with Bianco Properties and the petitioner for this. We are very excited, and as Ms. Wagner stated, we think that the St. Louis Academy of Dance will be an excellent addition to the center. We're also pleased that we were able to keep an existing Olivet business in Olivet while they were looking to expand. And I'd like to introduce Casey Vasco, I always get that wrong, who is the owner of St. Louis Academy of Dance, who may want to share some additional information.
good. Remember to state your address.
Yes, so my name is Casey Voskill. I own St. Louis Academy of Dance, and I am here with my co-director, Emily Edwards. We are at 9310 Olive Boulevard. We have been there since 2004. And we have built this phenomenal community right there in this little pocket of Olivet. And we are now over 400 students strong.
Wow.
And if you drive down that way, it might be a little bit wild to think we get 400 students in and out of that space on a weekly basis. Just getting here today is like case in point why we need to move to this wonderful new facility. Our parking lot is just not conducive to our space. And with this new endeavor, we are going to have 5 studios. We're going to be able to bring in more dancers because we want to be a home and a hub for anybody who wants to come and partake in dance classes, as well as come safely. So we are excited for the access to Olive, being able to enter and exit safely and easily. I can tell you all of the families are excited for that, but we're most excited to be a part of this space, to stay in Olivet. And I also know that we're very excited to be neighbors with all of the people in the center. We've already gone and met with everybody, and our families are excited to have coffee at the Olivet Diner, or go to all the restaurants throughout the evenings that they're there, work out at Anytime Fitness while their kids are in class. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Any
very much. Go ahead,
questions?
Karen.
Yes,
Yeah.
what hours is the studio usually open?
So our prime hours are 3:30 to about 9 o'clock. We do have classes, some in the daytime. That's Monday through Friday. And then Saturdays, we are open from 8 until 3. So we're 6 days a week.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, at this time, we'll see if there's any public comments related to this agenda item. Anybody in the audience have any public comments? Seeing none, Carlos, will you please check the online?
If there's anybody online that would like to speak in regards to this agenda item regarding the special permit for St. Louis Academy of Dance, show your hand. And Chairman, I see none.
Okay, good. No questions or comments? I'd like to entertain a motion if anyone would like to speak up. Go ahead.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to forward recommendation to the city council to consider authorizing a special permit for the operations of a 12,125 square foot dance studio at the Olivet Shopping Center at the tenant space address as 9656 Olive Boulevard, and approve the petition for site plan review as illustrated in the permit plans. All as presented before the commission and noted in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated September 21st, 2023, subject to any staff conditions noted therein. And these are attached under the staff report.
Motion's been made by Daniel Rosenberg. Do I hear a second? And second by Carol Wagner. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Walt,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
and Chairman Dragell.
Approved.
Chairman, the recommendation passes unanimously. This item will be before the Olivet City Council on Tuesday, September 26th. And then a public hearing would be before the council on October 10th, where the council would decide on final action.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you for staying in all of that. We appreciate that. All right, we'll move on to item B, 9733 Mansfield Drive. Carlos?
Chairman, we have a petition for a new single family home at 9733 Mansfield Drive. It's a nearly half-acre lot located in Oak Estates. It's zoned single family. They're proposing to build a 3,600 square foot home on there. We have reviewed the proposed petition in there in terms of our community design principles. The lot fully complies with the SR district. Therefore, no site plan review is required. So when we look at our design principles, 5 of those principles deal with architecture. That's massing, roofs, garage materials, and elevation articulation, which from a staff perspective, we feel apply with those guidelines. I'll talk about the elevation articulation in a second. The other 3 principles deal with the site improvements, which is grading, stormwater, and tree preservation. And we'll talk about the tree preservation aspect as, again, these are guidelines, and it's our role and responsibility to inform the commission when we see or through these reviews have questions about conformance or compliance with those guidelines. Regarding elevation articulation, Mr. Carswell did the primary review for this, and he did note that when he looked at the left side elevation, he expressed some concerns about regarding whether any windows should be along this left side. We had the discussion in terms of what is within the guidelines and the principles and the objective. And in this case, we talked about that when you look at this left side elevation on paper, it's 2-dimensional, and that it may warrant some type of comment on this. But when you look at it in real life, there is a 3rd dimension to that, and that these walls actually are on different planes and therefore do provide elevation articulation. We also talked about in the past, the commission has found those acceptable. So when you look at your building plans, whether it's the roof plan or the actual building footprint, you'll see that this elevation, there are over 20 feet of different planes that occurrences that are happening in here, and therefore we had the discussion. I felt it does meet the principles as we've applied them in the past. Again, Mr. Carswell kind of questioned that in terms of looking at this just 2-dimensionally in there. So we just want to make sure it was brought to the commission's attention. I don't believe that any modifications or changes are necessary. As we look at tree preservation, and this is an issue that's going to be coming up in there. We've heard a lot about this during the comprehensive plan update process. This is the existing site and the existing canopy area per the plans. We did request, as part of the commission's minimum standards for submission, is to have the names of the species. Those were not provided by the petitioners. They are here, they can answer that. The reason we ask for those is that way there's no questions asked later, but they run their own risk if they don't provide that. So I can't tell you what type of species these are in that process, but the petitioner will be able to answer and address that well beyond or better than I could in that process. When we look at the existing tree canopy area, and then you look at the canopy area that will be proposed after the new home development, there is a significant loss of canopy in there. But when you look at the guideline and understand the various components, a majority of these trees are within the buildable area of the lot in there. There is a couple back here that are adjacent to that buildable area in there that you could have some questions regarding the necessity to remove. Some of those will be because of the grading. Some of them will be because of the overdig for the foundation in there. But it brings into question, where, to what extent should that canopy area be removed. You always have to be cognizant about the utilities and health of trees in there. And then also whether the petitioner has intentions to provide anything additional after the home is constructed. Some petitioners have provided us arborist reports. Other petitioners have provided landscape plans in this case. But this one was worthy of bringing it to the commission's attention, given, again, that existing tree canopy that is within that buildable area here is being lost, and their petitioners here, they could probably better address what their intentions are after construction in terms of the site, but we need to be cognizant that when you do plantings on the property, that those locations take into consideration the utilities, both above ground, underground, and other components or access points to the site. Be glad to answer any specific questions. Again, this is something we kind of heard routinely as we were going through our community updates on the comprehensive plan. In there, we do have guidelines, and in this case, when you look at the guidelines and what's within that buildable area, it's not a significant deviation, but it's something we haven't really talked about much in there. But now that we're hearing more and more of it, it becomes more of a priority or something to bring forward to the commission. In there, there is no guidance in terms of what is the best practice and what is not that we've developed to date. But I think having a discussion with the petitioner, who's in the past talked about landscape plans, can provide some insight on how he was looking to balance that.
Good. Carlos, anything else?
I also, copies were provided to the subdivision trustees. They were signed off, and you have an email in your packet regarding that. And outside of that, we have no other comments.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Carlos? Go ahead, Karen.
Well, I guess this is really for the petition, but I am confused as to why they can't keep some of these trees. And I should like to hear what the rationale is.
Yeah. Okay, I think, anybody else? Otherwise, I think we'll hear from the petitioner. Maybe you can talk about that and go over any other details you'd like to go over.
Doug Cohen, Douglas Properties, 1025 South McKnight Road is my residence. So this house is pre-sold. And as far as the trees, anything, I really don't get involved in tree removal. Of course, we don't take down trees that aren't either unhealthy or in the footprint, or at least anything that's going to be 10 feet away at the closest is going to die. And it's $5,000 to take it down when the house is there, and $500 when it's not there. So also this customer, she's a prolific swimmer, and she was adamant about not having to, no one wants leaves overhanging a pool. That's a nightmare. So really it's the engineer pinpoints what trees need to be removed. I don't think that, and as far as, we've never taken down a tree just to take down a tree. I always did say, like in other municipalities, and I think it should be something that this city should talk about, there should be a landscape plan included in the original permit application, and that escrow for the builders shouldn't be released until that landscape plan is implemented. This I don't think there's a tree issue in Olivet. I mean, there's more trees in Olivet than really any municipality in town. The footprints of a lot of the lots in a good portion of Olivet are small, and the houses are getting bigger. So that's eating up a lot of property. With the stormwater control work, I think we're doing a decent job, containing the water volume. But as the houses get bigger and the lots are small, there are gonna be problems. These houses are selling for almost $2 million. So, it's not like people, at least my customers, they're not shunning away from doing a nice landscape. I know on Stacy Drive, they're spending like $30,000 on landscaping. Wrap a bow around it. We're not taking down anything that it doesn't need to be taken down. And then as far as the windows, I was just texting with Katie, the architect, and because of the pitch of that left side elevation, windows won't fit on that second floor on the left side.
Doug, I was looking at some of those trees, like in that upper left part. but it does look like where the stumps are, you're doing grading adjacent to it. So
Yeah,
it
that's,
looks
so
like-
that's probably why too. But so it's a combination of, again, water control. You know, so that site falls both directions to the rear and gosh, I think it might even fall east and west, but mostly east. So we have to really police what we're doing there.
Looks like you could get into the root structure,
Yeah. Mhm.
and the drainage is to basically keep the water away from, you know,
Well, yeah, we got two new houses. Actually, as I think about it, it really falls more to the east and, you know, I'm flanked by new houses. And so we obviously don't want to present a problem to anybody, especially two new houses that, you know, doing everything to protect them. And so my engineer comes up with a plan, the city studies it, they negotiate a deal between the two of them, and then I get it and I implement it. That's pretty straightforward.
have you already had discussions about landscaping for this particular lot that you?
On
could
this
share?
particular lot, not yet. But I know that they're, you know, fairly well-to-do. Like I said, anybody that's spending, at least my clients, you know, they get a landscape allowance in my contracts. So, you know, you use it or lose it. It kind of, it doesn't break my heart, but it hurts my eyeballs when I see new houses in Olivet and no landscaping. You know, my family was in the landscaping business for many years. And I just doesn't, in most municipalities, you have an ordinance that follows with the footprint of the building permit. Something that should be thought of, even if it's a minimum.
Any questions or comments for the petitioner? Carol, did you want to follow up at all with some of those trees?
I'm still pondering, there's just an awful lot of trees coming down. And,
But they're not coming down for no reason.
well. Yeah, but they're still coming down. I'm just wondering if there are some modifications that could be done. First of all, we don't know what the species are for each. As Carlos pointed out, you haven't provided that yet. But I was wondering if there's some modification that we could do to accommodate stormwater issues
Well,
in the site and so on.
so the only thing that I could think of, and again, it's no one wants to take down trees for no reason. It costs me money. So if in the banter back and forth between my engineer now, but I guess we're going in reverse here because this has already been presented by my engineer and reviewed. Has it been reviewed?
Comments were forwarded to you. I don't know. I
So-
haven't had a discussion with your engineer.
Okay, yeah, so we responded to their comments. I know we did that. So it's kind of a done deal, actually, you know.
So we have.
No,
this
it's
first time we've
it's being
seen-
introduced to the commission. This is not.
I mean, a done deal between the grading plan from my engineer to the city third party, I guess, is how you're doing it.
No, they're available throughout the process. This is not a done deal.
No, no.
Okay.
You misunderstood me. My engineer has already presented it, the grading plan, to the city. And the city has reviewed it, and they've already, and my engineer had gotten him the information that they wanted. So I think between, this group has not seen it, of course, but the city's representative who looks at grading has.
So we haven't approved anything, Doug.
You haven't, but you don't, you would, I would think, you know, you have licensed engineers on representing me, licensed engineers representing the city. I would think the two of them would come to a plan that works best for the neighbors and the city.
We'd like to think so, but we have questions.
Yeah, I'm here to answer them.
So so my first question is, as Carlos pointed out, that the species of trees that you're talking about aren't identified. So we have no idea what it is you're really talking about.
You see the trees that are wanting to come down. You don't know the species of the trees that are coming down? Is that what
Carlos,
you're?
didn't you point out that there's
On the checklist, and it was
Yeah.
noted in the
Right.
review letter that you received, Mr.
And then we were confused about that because I'd never had to do that before. So
Carlos, is that something new?
No, that's part of
Yeah.
the submission. It
Right.
becomes that we've just never asked or got into to that detail. A majority of the priorities have been trying to address stormwater
Yeah.
in there, and the focus has changed. And then we've had some things more on the architectural things, but these are fluid and these are guidelines
Right.
in there, and they're addressed in a case by case basis.
I mean, I took down 80 trees across the street.
Yeah, we know.
But that's not a badge of honor either.
No,
Okay.
but I mean,
make
that's
sure that that's
it. But if you want a site developed, I mean, then you're gonna lose trees. I mean, I'm not following the.
No, we're not disputing that.
Well, which trees would you, could you see like any modifications, to try to save? Because, and I'm just trying to get your frame of mind,
Well, I mean, I don't know, there's a number of trees on here that, I mean, some of them obviously will have to come down if the house is to be located in where it is. But I have questions mostly about the ones towards the back. They're large trees. We don't know what they are. And it's not clear to me why they have to be removed.
Again, I'm sure it's because of grading. We don't take down trees because we want to. There's
So
got to be.
try to save those. We'd have to change the grading plan. Which then we balance the issue with stormwater management as well.
Right now we accomplished. So I'm just, at first I'm just looking to find out the types of trees that we're talking about. And the other is I'm just trying to get a better understanding of why those trees are indicated, that they have to be removed. I need to understand. And you're not just telling me, you're just guessing.
Are you talking to him or to me?
I'm to ask you.
Again,
Your
we don't
petition.
take down trees without a reason
Well, I'd like to know what that reason is.
because of the grading. We're not taking down trees because I want to. We're trying to protect the neighbors. I got 3 neighbors that I'm trying to limit the water to.
And
What type of, just maybe if you could explain what type of equipment you would have to do, and what type of work to change that grading.
Well, I'm assuming that by changing that grade and making it protect the neighbors, we would be moving dirt in such a manner that the dirt would be smothering the tree.
Looks like you'd be digging into that.
Or vice versa. It's either smothering or digging into the roots.
So I guess the question that I would want to ask, is there another way to grade the site that we could save some of these trees? I mean, there may not be, but I don't know. I think I have a duty
I understand.
to my community to ask that
Yeah.
question.
My engineer would not grade a property that would put more work to me without thinking about a way to do it without, because I probably have $10,000 of cost in doing this. So he's not going to say, you know, these are highly qualified engineers. They're not going to say just, let me get this done off my desk. I'm just gonna have it do this. They have thought process in this whole issue where utilities are gonna be, you got sewer lines, water lines.
Well, it was
Mm.
brought up in retaining wall, I heard, but the only problem with a retaining wall. Let's see if I can get this. If you put a retaining wall like right here, because this is the grade that's gonna have to stay, you know.
Mhm.
You put a retaining wall here, you're digging into the ground where all the roots are. And that's, you know, the root structure is typically underneath the canopy, you know, with most trees. And so even if you built the retaining wall, you're still gonna be getting into that root structure. And
Yeah,
damaging that
Yeah,
structure.
and a retaining wall in the middle of the backyard is kind of an eyesore, you know, so trying to
We're trying to-
wear several hats here, and most importantly, trying to keep my client happy, who's, you know, spending a lot of money to come into this community.
Unfortunately, I don't see a way to do it with that bottom grade being set there.
Carlos, I'd be interested in your opinion.
Pardon?
I would be interested in your opinion.
Yeah, we take a look at this and the tree canopy, tree preservation or tree ordinances are always difficult in there because they're not just applicable to new construction in there. There is a defined buildable area on this property and a majority of that canopy falls within that defined buildable area. Our codes and regulations are written in a fashion that, you know, the owner of the property has the rights to build within that buildable area in there, whether they were adding to the home, putting a pool, a driveway extension, or so. And the same thing applies with a new home. When we look at the new home, we are cognizant of the tree placements, but we also know in what is being submitted, you know, what are the goals of the design in there. And one of the things I'm pretty confident in saying is, you know, tree preservation is not one of those goals. I don't think that they designed this house layout, this driveway layout, this pool layout with one of the main principles of preserving trees. We probably see something completely different in there, and I don't know what that could be, and or so, but you know, our codes don't say that that's how it's supposed to be done. It's not one of the essential priorities. Essential priorities are really how are you going to manage stormwater, how are you not going to mound, and how are you going to be aesthetically, you know, complementary to the neighborhood in there. As our priorities change, then those other things or other aspects can be part of that consideration in there. There's nothing wrong with this design. We've approved this design with similar type of tree removals in the past on other projects in there. When we look at it from a staff perspective, we look at what is within that buildable area, because we feel the way our code is written is that there is a given right for whoever owns that property to remove those trees in there. As you get outside of the buildable areas, that means in the setbacks, we are a little bit more cognizant in there, but the way zoning codes are written, those setbacks usually have overhead utilities, underground utilities and things. So they're not the best areas for placements of trees. So again, we have these two conflicting, you know, aspects of, you know, trying to preserve trees, but then we're pushing them in the areas that they probably aren't best or shouldn't be. The other thing we don't know, I mean, these trees that we're seeing here could have very poor health. I can't tell you, you know, that, you know, saving these trees is great, but you know, 3 years from now, this new homeowner is going to be required by the city to remove a dead tree, and it's on them because you're not going to come back out of courtesy to do it for them. The other thing, it could be a sweet gum tree, and honestly, yeah, that's not one that's made high on the list of trees to try to preserve. I think as we're going through this process, you know, we pick up both from what we hear from the community, but and more specifically from the commission, of things that we want to make sure that we prioritize in our discussions with the developer. When this came in, this was a traditional review. We probably wouldn't be having this elongated discussion at all, but what we're hearing more and more now from the community is that they want this type of discussion, and we're having this discussion And there, in terms of my opinion, you know, you can't, it's like the simple things of, well, let's just flip this house over in the driveway. Well, you can't, because you end up removing more trees in there. So Mr. Cohen could have been easily just come in, proposed a house and a driveway and showed a graded backyard and left all the trees, waited a year after he finished the home for the owner to come in for the pool and take all the trees out. And that is permitted by code. I mean, but he's being honest and forthright by showing that this pool is going to be proposed down the road. We're going to have talk about another petition that didn't, and now we're trying to eradicate some issues with some neighboring property owners. And they said, kind of, I told you so. So in this case, again, I look at this a couple of months ago, this would have been, the discussions would have been done 20 minutes ago, but making sure that the developer is aware that, we're hearing more from our community, the importance of trying to preserve trees that are healthy and outside of those buildable areas. And for those canopies that we're losing that are in the buildable areas, that a landscape plan, providing some of those trees for the future to benefit for it may be a solution in there. We don't have anything designed or guided specifically yet. I think our guidelines are good. I can tell you, when I go through a review, that was probably number 8 of 8, just the way it is in the booklet in terms of my priorities. Maybe, next time around, it'll be number 3. I think stormwater is always going to be the most important thing that we take a look at. After that is mounding and bulk. And we may start having more discussions about trees. In addition to that, it's easy to say, preserve, protect these trees. We don't have the resources or the manpower for that. I can tell you that I have really good building inspectors. I couldn't tell you one tree from another tree. I know some of them now pretty well, but that's not my expertise as a planner. In there are a lot of these communities people are referencing actually have arborists on staff. We have a horticulturalist, and that's a whole different thing. And we try to use them in there to try to accomplish something that we really can't. And again, I'm not going to put my inspectors making these type of decisions where they're not qualified to do and protect, or I can't spend have them there constantly on the site ensuring that nothing gets driven over. I think over time we need to set up some policies and some goals and objectives. And there, I think Mr. Cohen's kind of heard, this is something now we're going to take a look at, not just on his projects. He's going to have plenty more to come in, but with other developers and start talking about, you need to be cognizant about these tree removals. And for those that you are going to remove, what are you going to do in lieu?
Well, I think that, not to interrupt, you're done. In other municipalities, we build in Ladue, and they have, I think Clayton has the same rule. Well, first of all, I think it's Adam that I think you definitely have to have a landscape plan. I mean, that's just simple. The other thing that other municipalities do is for every X amount of inches of trees that you remove, you have to replace. It's a formula. So that should be something that you all should address. I don't know if it's this committee that does that. I don't know how that works, but I'm just telling you what other communities do. And now that I think the city is going, maybe because of influx of construction and commercial and townhouses, whatever else, the city's inundated and going through some growing pains because personnel is leaving. And it's a challenge for Carlos. I mean, believe me, I hope everybody here knows that he has his hands full. It is a brutal time because so much development and inspectors leaving and trying to find new inspectors is no easy chore. But if you do have a landscape plan that is necessitated, and then an ordinance that says for every 10 inches of trees that you remove, you have to plant 2 or whatever, maybe you can piggyback on some of the other municipalities that have those rules, because some of it has to make sense. You can't transplant, you can't find a tree that has, I don't know what the 6 inches, they just don't exist, or, so you have to have some leniency. And then also you don't want to have dumb thing look like a forest. And then the third thing is that when you have people spending this kind of money for these houses, they also have their own landscape plan that they want, so it's hard for the city to say, you got to plant 15 3-inch trees and we don't care where you put them. And then the customer has, "Well, I'm spending $30,000 on a landscape plan, but I might not." So maybe that should be thought of, to go hand in hand. Maybe the city maybe you have some authority to give Carlos and the staff to say, well, they're taking down 40 inches of trees, but they're bringing in, only 15 where our criteria says 20, but boy, it's beautiful. So we're going to run with it. Maybe you should give that, because I've been in other developments where people have spent a lot of money on landscaping, and then all of a sudden we have to, by ordinance, plant 3 more trees, and they're like, I don't even want them. Look what I got. It's going to look silly. So there has to be, it's a thought process, and you have to kind of protect everybody and have some flexibility in it. And I think, I'd be glad to share what the other municipalities do when I find out, if you want me to. And, but bottom line is, no one's taking down trees for no reason. That's the bottom line.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments for the petitioner? Seeing none, we'll take some public comments on this. Thanks. Stephanie?
Stephanie Todd, 7 Heather Hill Lane. It just seems that I would appreciate it if you would just look at this a little closer, just take a second look at it, because there seems like there are some unanswered questions. For, in other words, like the species, because like oak trees are, have a taproot, maples spread way out. So there is a difference. I understand that that probably most of them will come down, but I kept hearing that there was a significant amount would come down, but not all. So there's probably a few trees in question. And so I guess I'm just asking to take a second look, and if there is a different way to do the stormwater or something, just take a second look.
Thank you.
I don't understand for sure which trees.
If you could state your name.
Oh, Susan Colhagen, and I'm at 27 Forsythia. But there does look like there's one tree in the front of the house that could stay, and then maybe one smaller tree. Those look smaller. That's outside of the build area that might be able to be preserved. And I don't know if they're very good trees or anything, but I like Mr. Cohen's idea of that maybe the developers need to have an arborist that measures the trees that they're taking down. And it doesn't all have to be trees, but my understanding from some of the other municipalities, because a lot of my, some of my neighbors were complaining and first alerted me a few years back that Webster and some of the places that you have to measure everything, and then you can replace them with bushes and trees alike, so that you're getting back some, carbon filters and canopy. So anyway, I think that's a great idea to work towards not just guidelines, but ordinances that get real clear about, you guys need to have a landscape plan, and if you're gonna take this down, what are you gonna put back? So,
Yeah, thank you.
thanks.
I forgot, I wanted to add one other thing. I think everyone up here, wants to do away and try to control front entry garages. I think that's a safe assumption. I hope. I don't think there's anything more unattractive than a front entry 3-car garage. When you have side entry garages, that is also going to be a factor in losing trees. So just thought I'd make sure everybody knew that.
Carlos, can you check online, see if there's any other public comments?
If anybody would like to speak in regards to this petition at 9733 Mansfield, show a raise of hands. I got 2 people on, but I think they're for the next item.
Okay.
So Chairman, I don't believe there's any.
Okay, well, any other further discussion on this? Seeing none, do I hear a motion? Yeah, good, right.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the petition for community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 9733 Mansfield Drive as presented in the memorandum for the Department of Planning and Community Development dated September 21st, 2023, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion to be made by Daniel Rosenberg. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Sam Wallach. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Wallach,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
No.
and Chairman Drugo.
Approved.
The motion passes by a majority 4-1.
Well, I definitely think this item definitely brought up some good points, things that we really need to look at, and I think those were all good points, so. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. This is item C, 46 Stony Center. Carlos?
Chairman, you have a petition for the construction of a new in-ground swimming pool along with flat work that is in excess of 1,000 square feet. Therefore, through our ordinance, it requires site community design, site plan, and concept stormwater management review in there. Being that this is pretty much a two-dimensional flat work with the in-ground pool, it is primarily a site plan review along with how the stormwater is going to be mitigated. The petitioner has just became the owner of a new home that was built a couple of years ago that came before the commission, in which we had several concerns from the adjacent subdivision regarding the stormwater impacts that the new home would have, and then possibly a potential pool, which they were not petitioning for at that time. Now the new homeowner is petitioning to construct the pool. We have the same concerns regarding the stormwater impact that this will have downstream to the adjacent neighbor that's in a different subdivision and further down. When they built the home in there, they placed a detention area meeting our specific standards. They had 2 detention pits, one in the front yard, one in the backyard. To meet the city's minimum requirements, the pit that was in the backyard had to be 18 feet wide, 10 feet in length, and 3 feet in depth. During construction of the home, they came back and amended the pit area and expanded it an additional 8 feet with the purpose of that soon they were going to consider an additional flat work or possibly this pool in there. So they built this 18 by 18 by 3 pit area in the rear yard, which exceeded the minimum requirement that was required for the house in there. Now they're coming in for this pool with the intent to utilize the access area of that pit to accommodate for the stormwater drainage for the pool. In there, it is reviewed and the numbers do meet, in terms of the calculations and the criteria of what is required. Remember, the pool footprint, which is 648 square feet, only accounts for 50% of the impervious space. And then the pool deck, which is 956 square feet, counts as the full total. Therefore, you do get a little excess of 1,200 square feet of improvements on the property grounds in there. There are no additional structures that are proposed for the pool, such as trellises or kitchens or anything of that nature. The pool will be fenced in with a privacy fence along the north property line, and then an ornamental fence that runs along the rear boundary of the subdivision and property, and then around the south side of the property in there. I'll show you kind of an overview, because when we had this house being built, there was concern specifically of some property owners on Ramsgate regarding the impact that this new home would have on the an inlet that's located on the property adjacent to the back, and then the downstream areas of Ramsgate, which had experienced significant flooding, especially last year when we had the big summer storm in there, and then some other flooding experiences in the past in there. That led that with this home, the city contracted to conduct an analysis, and there's 3 parts. One was to do the review of the new home in there, which was conducted and done based on the petition application that came in. Two was to do an analysis of an inlet that's right here and how to best utilize that inlet or modify that inlet to have better use in there, because this property here at number 11 not only gets the stormwater that's generated from this property and to the north here, but also from Downey. Everything from Old Bonham runs, sheet flows from Downey, goes into an inlet or jumps the curve, and then comes into the backyard of this property to where there is another inlet and then continues on further low. So there is quite a bit of significant impact in that back property, but also in the front property along Ramsgate on their street side. They have quite a bit of water that sheet flows, from Old Bonham all the way down Ramsgate in there. There are inlets along the side of the street, which led to the third component of the analysis, was to look at the MSD infrastructure that was in place and determine whether it's sized adequately. Right now, preliminarily, what we're hearing is it is not. And that is a problem in there in terms of permitting new construction without accommodations for stormwater in there. Our ordinance helps address that by trying to mitigate the new construction in the process, but there's already a lot of impervious space, not just in new construction, but wider driveways, bigger pools, and a lot of other amenities that lots of these property owners have done south of Old Bonham in there. And those all essentially, little by little accumulate. And that's why within our stormwater regulations, we now require that when you have any accessory improvements in excess of 1,200 square feet, you have to provide on-site detention. And that's what this petition in essence would take advantage of, and what they did plan for when they were under constructing the new home. So Chairman, that kind of gives you a quick overview. In there, they are meeting the code criteria by adding because they made that detention area wider. We do have a little concerns about the slopes that are here. As you can see that there's been some erosion, and we think that there should be some better defined swells here as illustrated in there, but probably some rock to help slow some of that volume. But in terms of overall capacity, they have designed the detention pit to accommodate that pool area. While that won't resolve the bigger problem or issue we have existing, it does mitigate at least what they're proposing with the pool. Be glad to answer any questions on that.
How is water going to get into that pit from the pool area?
Good question. There is a grate that is shown on the pool plans that you have that runs along that edge there. And I'll let the petitioner kind of speak about it a little bit specific. I don't have it in the slide, but I actually do have it in the, bear with me 1 second here. That is a typo. I apologize. It is the property owner.
Is that detention area already?
It's already in place and built.
Okay.
So you can see this 4-inch future trench drain
Mhm.
that runs across right here. That picks up and then would divert the stormwater that's picked up from the hard surface area into that pit.
So piped in.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would assume it's kind of a grate
Yeah.
along the concrete, and then it pipes down to the pit area. Again, I'll note the original pit that was approved for the house was 18 by 10 by 3. They amended that after they went through their approvals and expanded that. That is not a bad thing. If someone wants to build something bigger, we're not going to stop them to do so in this case. But in this case, they were cognizant. It appears that they were doing so because they had plans to add the pool area.
This says 16 by 18. So am I not reading that right?
I'll let the numbers, it's just the 18 by 16 by 3.
Do we know for sure what it was?
I think is that the width and the length, they're just kind of interchanged. The volume itself is calculated in the pool plans. It didn't change from there. But what happens here is that this whether the 18 was the length of the width, it's still the two 18s, and they gone from 10 feet to 6 feet and then kept the 3-foot depth. So I apologize if I confused everybody.
Okay. How's the drainage now?
The only concern or issue that we've seen again is there is some erosion that is that's visible on one of the opposite ends by the driveway. And that's illustrated in the picture we showed just a second ago. Bear with me 1 second here. In here, as you see this area here, and they had this swell coming around. We're up at the site. You can see that it's kind of clearing out some of the, whether they did grass seed or so, but the volume, typically that's a reflection that is coming down so fast, it's pushing out everything. In there, and that'd be a good area to kind of put some rock and try to slow that volume down. It's not about the capacity in there. It's just that it's moving pretty quickly.
Can you also go over the improvements that were made with that inlet? That's
No improvements have been made to the neighbor's inlet as of yet.
okay,
And
but that
that's
was
going to be part of
recommended.
our analysis of whether we should raise that inlet or so, but that is also going to be pendant. That was under the assumption that there was enough, that the line there had a capacity to take in all that volume.
Okay, so there's no plans to change that in?
They're still looking at that aspect. I'm not going to say that there isn't no plans. I think that the inlet could be better utilized.
Yeah.
But if the piping system, as you go further south, is starting to get smaller and oversaturated, it may not be in the best interest of the city or that property owner.
You're just pushing
do
the
that.
problem further down.
Yes. It may
Okay.
be better off of trying to look at some ways to either create some type of drainage area.
Almost
in
like a
there.
retention block,
Correct.
the retention area. Any other questions or comments for Carlos? Seeing none,
I
oh,
was,
go ahead.
well, I was just going through this letter from the
Please do.
neighbor. Okay.
But maybe we can also bring on the petitioner. at this
Yes.
time.
Sorry.
Hi, my name is Christopher Wang. I live at 46 Tony Side Lane. I'm the homeowner. And did you want me to present just like what my thoughts are or any specific items that were concerning to you? Yeah, obviously, I feel like, you know, when we designed this pool and this patio, their goal was to preserve as much of the drainage patterns as possible that were approved by the city when we built this house. In other words, basically the pool goes on a flat spot and all the drainage patterns around it would be preserved. That was the idea behind when we designed this pool, to minimize any disturbances in those slopes and grades in the yard. Obviously, you have to dig a pool to, you know, you disturb dirt that way, but the goal is to preserve those patterns around the pool so that we would maintain those drainage patterns to mitigate as much stormwater as possible. Obviously, we know that water goes down a hill, but the goal is to divert that water going down the hill to the appropriate spot. And as Carlos mentioned, there is that drainage in the concrete patio, the design concrete patio. Again, the goal is that the water that hits the patio, a lot of it will slope into that drain and get piped right to that stormwater trench. So the goal was to minimize as much stormwater burden on anybody else as humanly possible. And I feel like we've done that with the design of the slope, you know, again, not disturbing the slope of the yard, the enlarged stormwater trench, and then draining as much water as we can to that trench from the concrete patio.
I have a question, is what Carlos was talking about, adding some rock, you know, to kind of slow it down or to try to more define the, like a trench, if you will, you know, for.
That's certainly a possibility. Honestly, there has been some erosion back there, but I think a lot of that was because we deferred putting in sod. Because again, the goal was to put a pool in, and I didn't want to buy, honestly, monetarily, I didn't want to put in sod that was going to tear up 2 months later, 3 months later. That would just seem silly to me. So that's why we didn't put sod in, which probably would have lessened quite a bit, if not all of that erosion. So, sir, I mean, yeah, obviously we plan to replace, the eroded area to regrade it to the way it's supposed to be. But obviously, yeah, if that doesn't work, then certainly rock would be the next step, or some type of way to further mitigate in that corner. Sure.
Would you be opposed to adding the rock now while you're doing the pool?
Ideally, I'd like to see what happened once I sodded the yard, built the pool, sodded the yard, fix the erosion that's there. And then, if there's still an issue, then I think it'd be worth addressing. But my hope is that it doesn't, because I feel like a lot of the issues now are because we didn't put sod in initially, because we were going to tear the backyard up anyway.
My name is Jim. I'm with By State Pool.
Come on up to and state your name and address for the record.
It's Jim Mollering with By State Pool. One of the things we can look at is when after we dig the pool and on the final grade, we can take a look at maybe berming something to slow down that water. But if we need to add a dry creek bed, is kind of what you are talking about, we can put that in at that time. So we're going to be very aware of water situations. We had everything engineered, so we'll take a look at that if we need to add that. So
Would that be something that could be worked through with?
Through the permitting process, they can incorporate that or show in there's a condition as part of that process, and then we can work with them.
Okay.
And that
how does that get documented?
when they apply for the building permit, we'll request that they come up with something, or before we close the permit that they have to finalize.
We can
Yes,
put
sir.
something on the drawing that shows some type of drain.
Yeah. Okay, good. Any other questions or comments for the petitioner?
The one-
Carlos, did you?
The one thing I would note, and again, as we talk about the erosion on the south side of the property, and that you're cognizant of that in there, because it's on your property. But the big issue here is you have a homeowner behind you, and I don't know if you've actually reached out or been introduced or talked to them. In there, they were vocal when the new home was being built, that they were concerned about stormwater issues in that inlet. In there, we talked with the developer, who I believe you had already contracted, that the pool was going to become an issue. But some of these, again, as a community working with your neighbor, there may be some merits on how a solution that could address a broader problem would be more beneficial. And if you haven't spoken to that neighbor or met them, they live right behind you in there, I'd be glad to coordinate that. But I think it's important in there. I know when we went through this process with the new home, I mean, the city is spending a lot of money on engineering analysis in there, because we talked about this issue over and over in there. So it's nothing new in the process. But again, I think meeting with them to see what they've done, where some of that may actually be in there, or what you perceive in the backyard. There may be better solutions if we do it collaboratively as opposed to individually, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
What is the neighbor's concern? I was just.
It will be in
looking.
here. Some of it is they brought it to our attention, and we've had the discussion that there's been some concerns that maybe some of that infrastructure is undersized. And as we're trying to put everything into that might not be the best means. And it may be that then having a broader detention area, above ground type of detention area, or some type of rain garden in there to make this most effective. It's the best place is probably not on the subject property, it's probably between both properties. If we try to do it just solely on one side, without being cognizant what that the other side may need to do some alterations too, it's not going to be as effective. This picture here does two things for the process. One was to show that erosion, but then kind of show, it just drops back there. Literally, there's like a broken concrete channel in the back that's within an easement in there that then goes to that inlet that is in the back area here in that area. And again, there may be if we restrict ourselves to boundaries, we're probably missing an opportunity of doing something a little that could.
So what's he
mitigate both.
proposing to you?
Right now, I don't have an answer. I don't know in there. The neighbor is on. I hope he speaks. I know he submitted a letter. But some of it may be that the concern is more about the volume, so therefore maybe the dry creek bed does work better in the process. And if not, is it when all the water comes in, or at that point in there that, you know, that concrete area where all this is getting channeled maybe needs to be widened more, so it has more opportunity to kind of hold that water as it goes down in there.
All right, well, at this
It-
time,
it
why don't
just-
we take on some public comments and then we can, you know, readdress.
Should I sit now?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. Appreciate it. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? No? Carlos, will you see if there's
Okay,
anyone?
I
on-
do have. Okay, I'm gonna transfer Mr. Sofer to as a panelist.
And Carlos, I do have one question
Yes,
before
sir.
we bring that person on. Would your inspectors have measurements of that?
Yes, we do record and take pictures of the size in there, and I think you have some that were part of your packet from the neighbor
Yeah,
in there,
Right,
but we
I'm just
have
curious
three
what-
inspections that are done. One is when the pit is excavated, and then when the rock is put in place, and then the final.
so your inspectors have measurements on
Correct.
exactly what was
Mhm.
installed
And
confirm
then when
from-
the addendum came in and those changes took into place.
And it was 18 by 18.
Yes, well, it was 18 by 16. I think I read the
Okay, so it was
the
18 by
print.
16, that matches the calculations.
Correct.
So everything still, even if it was originally talked about 18 by 18, it's 18 by 16, but that doesn't change the total.
Correct. I misprinted that number that I.
Understood. I just wanted to confirm that.
All right, 1 second here. All right, I think in the process, I lost Mr. Stouffer. I do have another, Ms. Cotter, do you want to speak to this item? I'm going to transfer you as a panelist. And then Ms. Carter, if you can make sure your mic and if your video is on, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
And can you see me?
There you-
See me so you can see me. Well, I hope Mark gets back on, but that would be, I think collaboratively, we might all, numbers 11, 12, 13, and 14 on Ramsgate might be interested in trying something out of the box, because the more water that goes into those inlets, the worse off I am at my house. I know I'm at 14. Because I'm the low spot. So when the water can't go down there anymore, when the water cannot be received in the MSD line anymore, then it just collects in my backyard. And I don't know, Carlos, you mentioned there was still preliminary or you did say that the MSD line was undersized. And I do have an email from September 8th from a Lynn Madeline at EDM.
Correct.
Saying that it is undersized. So, I mean, at least that's a finger to point, but it's not going to get solved today, and there's going to be more storms and, water in my house, I guess, and in my backyard. Mostly in my house is what I'm concerned about. I hope that you will not let any more water be tied into any of those inlets. I guess that's my big stand up. Please don't, because they're already undersized and it ends up on my property. I guess that's it.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. All right, I'm going to transfer you back as a attendee, and then I'm going to bring Mr. Sofer. All right, Mr. Sofer, you're transferred over and you're unmuted, so you should be.
Great. I'm sorry for the technology problems. I didn't hear what Malaya said. I heard the comments from Mr. Wang, and I think Carlos did a nice job of summarizing the history. If you all recall, when this house was initially built, we had major concerns because of the elevation, the expansion of the home. I'm at the very base of this property. We've had damage to our basement, as has 2 or 3 neighbors below us. I'm not an engineer, but I trust the engineers at Olivet, and they had said a detention pond would need to be of a certain size. And I take that to be the appropriate minimum engineering calculation. However, originally it was supposed to be 1 detention pond. They broke it up into 2. I don't know what the effect of that is, but they weren't going to have a pool. And I know Carlos advised them, if you want to have a pool, you should have a plan that incorporates the pool. They didn't choose to do that. They built the detention pond and chose to make it larger, anticipating there would be a pool. But they built it before they got approval for the pool and even submitted the application. So yes, apparently it's been expanded to 16 by 18 or 18 by 18. There's 2 conflicting numbers in there. But my first concern is, was that in fact, when the original inspector is coming in to look at that pit or that detention pond, at that point, they only were required to build it 18 by 10. So was the original inspector verifying that in fact it's the 18 by 16 or 18 by 18 it needs to be to accommodate the additional pool and additional space around the pool? I haven't seen measurements of it. I took a couple of photographs. It didn't look to me like it was 18 by 18, but I wasn't on their property and I'm not an expert. But my first concern is, did somebody in the city actually verify that that pit was that size? I'm not saying it wasn't, but it would be nice to know, because we have a serious issue here. The second issue is what Carlos alluded to, the slope. They built a much higher property and they have essentially 3 stories on the back. And on that left side, there is a significant drop off. When the water comes on a major event, it comes very fast. It's much more slope than it was previously. And I think they should, as Carlos points out, put something in that area to protect us, rather than their proposal is, well, let's just put some sod there and we'll see how that happens. Well, that may be great, except that in the meantime, me and my neighbors might have another flood in our basement. So it doesn't seem like when they're building a $2 million home or $3 million home or whatever this is, that it would be that much of an imposition on them to, and as good neighbors. I had not heard from the neighbor once since they built this. It would be good neighbors. I'm happy to discuss this with them. I'm not an engineer, but I don't have a problem with them building a pool on their own property. It's their right, but they shouldn't do so in a way that would cause damage to their neighbors. And so my concern is there should be some mechanism to address that slope to the side of the detention pond, which the detention pond, as I understand, is only designed for capacity, not for elevation or not for flow. I'm not an engineer, I'm not an expert, but it does seem that should be addressed before this is approved. Obviously, it's not pool season right now, so there's no urgency to approve this until such time as we can feel confident that we're not going to be having another major flood event as a result of this pool construction.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All good points. And just, I think what, since he missed that question about confirming the size.
Yes.
If you could maybe just,
So
address that.
during after the review and approval by this commission for the new home, they applied for the building permit, utilizing the same plans that were approved by the commission. Midway through construction, they came in with what we call an addendum, asking to expand the rear yard detention area. And it went from, and what they've indicated here, from the 18 by 10 by 3 to a 18 by 16 by 3. So they increased it, the length by additional 6 feet. And I apologize, I wrote down when doing the report 18 by 18. That was my mistake in there. So that addendum goes to the inspector. It was reviewed by the inspector. A new set of plans was issued to the contractor that noted that this change has been approved. So that's on the record in there. Then we have 3 inspections that are required for that detention, where the inspector looks at the size of the pit in there, and that was approved by the inspector. Then the inspector reviews it when the rock or the cisterns are put in place, and that was approved by the inspector. And then when the final is requested, that means that it's covered up. That was approved by the inspector. I have no reason to believe that the inspector didn't do the inspections and follow through on the plans in there. And what is visible is more a rectangular detention area than a rectangular one that you would have seen initially in there. So I believe that the detention area is oversized and in place as illustrated here in there. I don't think that there's any question about that.
Okay,
In there.
good.
Now we can always, it's easy to verify it, and you can do that with a metal rod or something to take a look in there. And there is a clean out in the process of that too. So we could talk about ways of maybe to kind of just checking on the depth of it in there.
Great, thanks.
The other things I'll note, the intent of these detention systems is to address some of these issues that we are experiencing on Ramsgate from the past. All new construction now is required to have on-site detention. A lot of the homes that were built in this specific area that's experiencing flooding did not. At that time, that was not something we were required in there. Being as low as they are, it probably wouldn't have been effective because they're really getting everybody else's stormwater in there. So as homes are being built upstream or sizable expanded areas are being constructed upstream, our goal is for them to provide their own on-site detention. So therefore we can capture that increase or increment that they're creating and hold it there for a while, but eventually it's got to run downhill. It's got to go somewhere in there. So in this case, the new home accommodates for the whole roof area. The expanded pit will accommodate for the whole pool area in there. So that's even more than what the original home had before. What we're experiencing now is the issues with the way everything else is graded, because slopes change and all that. And so have the frequencies and the volume of rain that we receive in there. We did have, some outside assistance to help us evaluate this petition, knowing some of the issues we were having. They're still in the process of compiling their report and data in there. And we do have the intention to present this in a public format with the neighbors able to participate and ask questions of the consultants. Preliminary, what we've kind of heard is that, excuse me, that the piping system is kind of undersized, meaning that there's more water going in there than it can keep up with. So eventually it backs up, water rises until it gets relieved, and then it comes back down. And that usually happens within a quick time frame, but it can impact and have adverse impacts to the properties that are in the low end or low area in there. So now we're in discussion with what are possible solutions. We've discussed a couple of alternatives that we want them to take a look at, and then we want to engage with the city and the neighbors to see, and also have an idea of what some of those costs and practicalities are in there. There's different solutions. One is looking at there's going to be a water project on Stony Side. Maybe when they abandon that water line, that the city takes that space up and creates a whole new storm sewer in there. Therefore, everything that's coming from the Stony Side that's coming down that side is redirected. And ultimately what we're doing is we're shifting a bigger problem here to minimizing the problem there, but now moving most of it this way in there. But that's the reality of it. The other options are to look for opportunities to find areas where we can detain water through that process. And again, we're dealing with private property owners, and that's going to require some cooperation. We're hearing a lot of positive things from some of the neighbors saying that is something that they would have interest in. There's things that they can do together in there to help kind of hold that water in there. So we're asking the consultants to take a look at those in there. And again, the goal here is to come back whether it's the commission or council, and to have the neighbors attend, what those results and recommendations are. And the pool and these improvements are being accommodated by the expanded detention system. And the whole goal of this detention system is not to increase the amount of water that's going downhill. The grading, that's a whole separate issue in there, and that does require a different level of review, and the detention requirements are not written to be able to address that. That's something we're just supposed to look at and find ways to better grade or reduce the volumes, or find opportunities where things can slow down or settle in. And those are done on a case-by-case basis. There's no mathematical way to do that in there. We do believe that within that picture, whether because it was seed and stratted or not, but given that you can see water is displacing and moving things, you can see the dirt that's been exposed, and whether that was sod or that was seed or that was hay in there, the water is going down fast enough from the top of that driveway and straight down to that ravine or ditch in the back. And that's where it should go. That's a low point in there. What we think what we should look at is, are there ways to try to minimize that, to kind of slow that down? A berm can do that. I can hold it back, but eventually it is going to go back down. Rock can do that. It can slow velocity, but eventually it continues to go back down. Those issues in the grading will probably won't ever resolve fully in there in the process of, lot by lot reviews. In this case, again, there may be some opportunities as the two owners kind of work together to see, maybe the rock doesn't need to be up on top of 46. It could be on the lower areas in there, but we can't look or consider something like that if they're not working together.
I think it's a good opportunity to get everybody to work together and maybe even take advantage of, I'm not sure, does Deer Creek still have allowances?
They do have allowances, and then that might be an opportunity to take a look at. They do go through different cycles for that. That's something we can give some information on. But I think what, in the end of the day, what they're proposing here for the proposed improvements in the pools are being complied with what the code requires.
Understood. But I do think it's a good opportunity to get everybody together. And at least if there's low hanging fruit that could be addressed by working together and listening to kind of what some of the issues are on both sides, I think there could be some real advantages, to them. I'm not sure how everyone else feels.
Agreed. I don't see any reason not to at least try to come to an agreement with all the parties involved.
Yeah, we're not going to solve everything, but if we can at least, like I said, try to address some concerns, issues, or things like that, I think it'd be helpful. So I would propose that we defer.
Yeah, I think I agree that the best plan would probably end up being a rock garden or rain garden in that back corner that probably incorporates both properties. I really think that probably would be the best opportunity, honestly, because the water is designed to be funneled to that corner. And the best opportunity is to detain as much water as possible. Obviously, we already tried to detain as much water as possible with the trench, but to detain as much of the water going down the slope in another option, such as a rain garden of some sort with some water hungry plants. That's probably honestly a really good option, depending on how. I know the MSD inlet is right there, so in the area probably before it gets to the inlet.
Right. Good. So I'd make a recommendation, we defer this until we can maybe either the homeowner try to, set up a meeting, and maybe you could do that in maybe the next 2 weeks with the rest of the residents, or if you'd like Carlos to help arrange that.
We could do that, sure.
All right. Does anybody have any objections to that? Good. All
Our
right.
next meeting would be October 5th. And I do have Mr. Sofer still online, so we'll wrap around tomorrow and see when we can kind of coordinate something.
So should I reach out to you then, or what?
I'd be glad to coordinate everybody if that's all right.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, good. So let's then move on to the next agenda item. We'll pull this up. It's item D. Or no, yeah, item D, 1177 Fairlight Court. Carlos?
Chairman, we have a petition to replace an existing privacy fence in the rear yard of the property at 1177 Fairlight Court. The existing fence has a smooth side facing the interior of the property. They would like to keep that replacement the same. But our code says that if you replace or repair a fence, the structural components have to face the interior property. Part of the reason why they would like to face the structural components outside, or there's at least two. One is that it abuts the I-170, and they really don't have any adjacent neighbor. On the east and on the south. On the west, the neighbor that they abut with already has a fence that has their structural post facing their property in there. In addition to that, this commission granted this property owner a similar variance back in 2011. So in essence, the pictures kind of show it best. Here's that neighbor's fence, and you can see their post facing outward. Here's the petitioner's fence, and you can see how they had the smooth side on their end. And here's the area that abuts I-170, and you really can't see in there, both either from I-170 or outward. And that the commission granted this petitioner to extend the fence along the front yard, similar to this. And you can see that area that was granted a couple of years back, right here. That wasn't as damaged as what was experienced recently. The other thing is, when they're putting up the fence, there's a retaining wall right along I-170. And so there's a significant grade drop. It would be easier, or at least their claims is it would be easier to place the post and then connect the fence to that, as opposed to place the post and then connect reverse. It can be done. I mean, as so, but there is some simplicity of doing it reverse. In there, the petitioner is here. I know they reached out to their neighbors, and they're asking for the commission to consider again replacing the existing fence as is, with the structural components facing outward. Be glad to answer any questions.
Was the neighbor granted a variance too?
I guess in the process that they have it, yes.
And
Probably using the same.
the neighbors, were they in agreement, or did they have any concerns?
And it's this one here. I'll let Ms. Springfield address that. So if that's okay.
Yeah, great.
They
Are
didn't.
you talking
We
about
sent
my
out.
neighbor on,
Yeah.
on that one side?
We did
sorry.
send out our notices, to everyone within 300 feet in there, and received no comments.
Good. And you can state your name.
Yes, I'm Elizabeth Springfield. I live at 1177 Fairlight Court, also known as Betty. I did reach out to my neighbor on my south side and I never heard from him. But Carlos has sent postcards out to everybody who had an opportunity to respond. And these fences falling down mainly because of that storm on July 1st, the sections that are coming down. And I have been told by two contractors that they cannot do this fence in the position that it's already in, in the same line, without moving it in, because they have to get behind there to do the hammering and setting up the panels. So that would mean I would have to move it in 2 feet. In fact, one of them said 3 feet on every side. I don't know how I could maintain the areas behind there with other fences. So I'm just asking for the variance so I can put it up the way it is now.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for the petitioner? No. And I would ask public, I think I would ask for public comments, but I see none in the audience. So Carlos, do we have?
There's nobody
anybody?
online.
Nobody online. So I think it makes sense what you're asking for. I'm not sure how everybody else feels. So, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no other further discussion, do I hear a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to motion to approve petition for a site plan review for the property address as 1177 Fairlight Court. to authorize a variation from section 435.040 parens A.3 close parens to permit the structural post to face away from the area enclosed. As noted in the plans before the commission, it is presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated September 21st, 2023, subject to staff conditions.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Daniel Rosenberg. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Wallach,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
Chairman Dragell.
Approved.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, and sorry for the long way.
I asked you that.
Oh,
Actually, it was very interesting to listen to all of this about trees and water.
well, glad you enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
Yes. All right, we'll move on then to other business. Item A, meeting minutes. And I see in our packet of information, meeting minutes from June 1st, 2023. Will someone like to acknowledge receipt of these? As
You
a,
have a series, actually, just to make sure, of
oh,
4 sets that have been prepared by Don. and
thanks for the
Jack.
clarification. June 1st, 2023, June 15th, 2023, and August 17th, 2023, and September 7th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I would like to acknowledge receipt of meeting minutes for June 1st, 2023, June 15th, 2023, August 17th, 2023, and September 7th, 2023.
Acknowledged. All right. If anybody has any revisions, please to let us know at the next meeting. Okay, we'll move on to reports. Carlos.
Okay, just a quick couple of things. Our next meeting is October 5th. At that meeting, we'll have Mr. Martin. We'll do a couple of things, talk about the review process, answer any commission questions. So we have various new members in there, and we can engage with Mr. Martin about the procedures and process. We also need to talk about or consider about the I forgot the titles in there. We haven't done that, and now that we have this acting secretary being played by Mr. Lewis, we probably need to kind of go over those and have those elections.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
that's great.
There shouldn't be any petition items outside of the pool. We'll try to get that resolved with the neighbors and hopefully come up with a good solution between them in there to try to expedite that. And then the final discussion will be regarding the bamboo ordinance. That's something we just hadn't been able to get to in there. Reminding Commissioner Wagner and Commissioner Dragell that we do have the advisory committee meeting coming up on August 12th, excuse me, October 12th in there. And at that point, I believe that you guys would be getting more of an expanded draft of the goals, the strategies in
Sure.
that process.
How complete will that draft be?
I think it'll still be in a skeletal format. I don't think you'd have the full version of the text
Okay.
until later.
Okay.
In there. And then the meeting on the 19th, I think, Mr. I will be out in there. Ms. Doty will be overseeing the meeting. In there, we do have one petition so far that's come in for a house addition on Burnawood in there, so we'll have that. And then any recommendations from Mr. Martin regarding the bamboo ordinance.
Very good.
So any questions or?
I won't be here on the night.
Yes, I got. Thank you.
I also have parent teacher conference that I have to leave on the 19th.
All right, and it might be something we'll check to see, because given Mr. Lewis also has, well, you're a different district, right? So to
Yeah,
see if
well,
there's any
we should
conflicts.
double check.
So we'll do so. Brian? No. Oh, Ledoux, yes. Okay, so if anybody has a conflict, let me know, Daniel, you too, if take a look at the 19th. All right.
Missy?
Thank you very much. This Saturday at 10 o'clock from 10 to about 12:30 will be a park opening at Herbside. So I know at this point that Councilmember Knox and myself will be there. I know that they've attempted to reschedule the Indian Meadows one. I don't have that on my calendar. I want to say
That is going to be Thursday.
the 27th is
Can you advance the
the
slide?
28th of September is what is that right? So the
There
Indian
you go.
Meadows makeup may be September 28th. Everyone watch out for the notices and get signed up if you're not signed up to our blasts. Beyond that, I really have nothing more to report other than to remind you that on October 3rd, there is the Clover opening. We were all supposed to RSVP. If you haven't, please do. I was told you were all invited. I finally got my invitation.
I did not get my invitation. However, there was an issue that somebody, like, certain invites didn't go out. They were trying to rectify that.
Yeah.
So more, you should see an invite, for
You got one?
maybe it's
Yeah.
because
And I do know
you're
we had that
preferred.
we had that same problem, but in letting, Mr. Yowitz know that supposedly recently another one went out by his staff of PR people that I think the city received it. In all honesty, the city manager forwarded it to make sure that the council got it. So yeah, let's look again and I'll let Mr. Yowitz know.
Okay.
Okay. And Turkey Trot is coming up on Turkey Day. I'm not sure what the numbers are now, but please, get registered. Some people here are volunteers. God bless you. Thank you for doing that. October 11th will be a coffee with the mayor. And Harvest Festival will be, thank you, Carlos. Harvest Festival will be at Stacy Park on Saturday, October 28th. It will run from 6 to 8 p.m. And Indian Meadows 4 to 6 p.m. on September 28th. And Villa Park will be Friday, October 14th at 6 p.m. We will have Stacy Starry Nights again, September 23rd, 7 to 9 p.m. And it's just going to be really exciting times for us. I appreciate what you do. It's hard work. That's all I have to report.
Go on.
Nothing to report. Thanks.
Nothing. All right. That being, here, go ahead, Carol.
Do we have a soft opening or a hard opening for community center?
I think we discussed that potentially being October, a soft opening, but I didn't bring those notes from my book with me. I will let you know specifically when I get into my book.
Okay.
No other no other further comments. We'll adjourn at 9:20. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.